Chapter 23. Cameron must die. 22:30. Jane noticed Cameron in his cyborg armor flying toward the two bridges. Jane was riding her motorbike along the riverside after having dropped off Troy at Nev HQ. Cameron fired micromissiles from a far distance as Jane maneuvered past, avoiding each missile. "What is that noise behind me?" "Oh, crap." With missiles coming in from behind, Jane spoke in tongues, casting 3 sets of 6 shadow clones for the express purpose of being hit by the missiles. With many of the shadow clones dispersing on impact with one of the projectiles, a few missiles followed Jane as she stood on the handlebars and did a backflip off her motorcycle. Cameron's vocals sounded distorted as a red portal opened, gyrating clockwise, sucking Jane through the black hole's vacuum. Finding herself inside a wide-open space, she saw electronics lit up brighter than any Christmas festival. "I do not want to kill you, Jane Turner. Submit to me now, or I will make you submit," Cameron announced, removing his visor. "After what you all did to Marcus, I'll never forgive you. Then prepare for a boss of a fight specifically made for you from your own daddy's video game." A mirror came out of the ground, reflecting Jane. An additional 6 mirrors came up out the floor as 7 personae of Jane mocked her. "We know all your secrets, Jane. If you are good, Jane, by having endless personae to protect all those dear children, then who is your nemesis?" "Cameron is a stupid," Jane pretended to cough as she struggled with pronunciation. "You are my enemy playing an evil game of personae to destroy Marcus. That is why I'll rip your head off," Jane growled angrily. "Wrong. You're wrong. You have always been wrong," the 7 personae replied in each mirror. "No, I am not." Jane defended her original statement, taking long, deep breaths. "Cameron is your equal, as opposites come together not to fight but to make love then marry. Then finally there are little Cameron Bankses and Jane Turners." The 7 personae all wore white floral wedding dresses. "Opposites attract to oppose, then good conquers all. Marcus proves that true love conquers all, and so shall I prove that true love conquers all despite whatever game you're playing." Looking around, observing a 360-degree view around herself, Jane secretly whispered in tongues, conjuring 2 chakra discs. Spinning to slice and crack each mirror, Jane mumbled in tongues, casting a tornado in conjunction with the chakra discs, shattering all 7 mirrors. As the shattered glass fell, Jane yelled as she hurled the 2 chakra discs at Cameron. Ascending higher, the 2 chakra discs missed him, only to shatter an electronic wall that made up the surroundings. "What kind of electrical labyrinth am I in? This planet is not one I am familiar with." Cameron flew away, firing rubber pellets back at Jane. Jane continued flying, conjuring a double scythe. Using the twirling method called skip-catch, Jane deflected all incoming rubber pellets. Cameron flew into a gladiator coliseum as Jane landed inside, readying her double scythe. Avatars of silver people cheered all around for what was coming out of the grated gate behind Cameron. "This time the odds are fair, wouldn't you say? 1 psycho such as yourself versus 3 androids." Cameron stepped back as 3 humanoid silver men morphed into Jane Turner, Sir Leviticus Smith, and Empress Julie and began walking toward Jane, wielding their weapons. Android characters are based off Maxwell's game. Leviticus is level 30, while Jane is level 40, and your superior, Julie, is level 50. "I am warning you that I don't wish to kill you, but we are running out of options, seeing as you wish to kill me." Cameron frowned. Android Leviticus wielded a war hammer as liquid metal encased his body, forming full plate armor. Android Julie wielded a longsword as liquid metal formed a buckler. Android Jane's arms became 3 6-foot-long whips extending from the elbows. Jane ran forward, only to be whipped by Android Jane, who slashed her knee as Android Leviticus jumped forward, swinging his war hammer in a wild downward motion. As Android Leviticus's war hammer cracked the ground, an electrical current shocked him, paralyzing him for a few seconds. Android Julie rushed like a bull, bashing Jane's left arm as she tried to block. Her strength is the real deal. Too close to Julie's likeness, Jane thought. Cool gaming mechanics, Cameron, but this won't stop me from killing you. This will be the future of gaming and training for war. All my men train here inside the Colosseum, preparing for Leviathan. Here we set up simulations of, say, what it took to invade the Golden Sun Country Club. Although it was very unexpected to have to face off against Troy Marino. Countermeasures are in place now. Get angry, Jane Turner, and reveal my victory, Cameron shouted. Flying backward, Jane whispered in tongues, casting slow time and shadow clones and conjuring more martial arts weapons, all engraved Dr. Axel Chase. Tearing the bag wide open, Jane's shadow clones each grabbed a martial arts weapon and began flying forward, overwhelming android Leviticus. A 3-foot war fan, 2 Psi, a spiked flail, a pike, a taser-enhanced tonfa, and a double scythe all attacked android Leviticus. Every time android Jane's whip struck a shadow clone, the clone dispersed, dropping its weapon as Jane cast more shadow clones. Keeping her distance from android Julie, android Jane defended herself, entirely unable to fight back, concentrating on casting more shadow clones. The shadow clone wielding the spiked flail purposely broke the tiles under android Leviticus's feet, causing an electrical current to paralyze him. At the opportune moment, the clone used the pike to gash android Leviticus's throat and then butted the taser-enhanced tonfa into the gash, causing a complete electrical meltdown. Shadow clones drew their attention to android Jane as it just then became clear that a cleric knight who'd served Sir Leviticus was impersonating their mentor. I remember this old man. He was my father's good friend. He would have never betrayed the Sarina gemfields. Jane clenched her fists, continuing to avoid android Julie's long sword. Shortly afterward, Jane had the double scythe remove android Jane's head from her shoulders as one of the 2 Psi impaled her heart, revealing a young boy. This kid is only 12 years old, a promising student to our queen. What the hell is this thing that has scratched the crap out of my Psi? Jane growled angrily, keeping her distance from android Julie and making herself vocal so that Cameron could hear her frustration. It is an artificial heart just like the one I have keeping me alive. Together we can all cheat death beyond the promise of divine mana nodes repairing dead cells. Cancer still finds a way to take lives, but we shall be immortal and immune from all diseases, including dementia. Jane was wielding 2 Psi as her shadow clones took to arcane flight, rushing Cameron. Meanwhile Jane used her 2 Psi to trap the longsword, thereby disarming android Julie. Android Julie placed both hands on the floor, sending tremors throughout the Colosseum, shattering all tiles and electrical networks. Jane flew above, concentrating on her shadow clones that were fighting only Cameron. Each set of clones was repetitively shot down. What a devastating attack. Your earthquake radius is widespread. I would hate to think what would happen if one of these were to attack Nankin City, Jane fretted fearfully by the android of her mentor. Casting more sets of shadow clones, she watched as each grabbed the weapon dropped by each previous shadow clone that had been shot down by Cameron. Android Julie curled up then formed a metallic cocoon around herself. Ignoring Cameron, Jane spoke in tongues conjuring a steel ram and 6 shadow clones running full force into android Julie. Each weapon dropped to the ground, breaking on impact, as Cameron opened his palm to reveal he'd been tightly holding a bloodstone. Jane's steel ram bent the cocoon inward as something unknown pushed back. A large silver plebidactyr pushed its way out by the android's pectoral muscles. Its phenomenal strength knocked Jane over as her shadow clones dispersed. So, you even transform into her dopey animal companion? I don't wish to kill you, whoever you are. Cameron is only using your body as a sacrificial pawn. So far 2 men made of silver, who were once innocent people, have been forced to fight as part of Cameron's sick game. You have more mana, Jane Turner, but I have level 10 nature spells empowered far beyond their normal potential. Your body could be fine-tuned into an android, and then like me you would never die, android Julie suggested as she morphed back into herself. I don't want to kill you. In fact, I want to kill Cameron. Remember who you were before you became an android. Together we can end all of this by killing that son of a bitch flying above. Jane pointed to Cameron. Android Julie gasped. Tsunami and hurricane, Android Julie shouted as she banged her hands together, chanting a lovely tune. Little green droplets formed around Android Julie's hands, then all around her body. Several seconds later, the air in the Colosseum filled with saltwater droplets as Jane and Julie found themselves standing in water 2 feet deep. Little did anyone know that the saltwater rapidly rusted Android Julie's electrical circuits, shutting down her artificial organs. Falling to the ground dead, she revealed herself as a female merfolk. The water evaporated, rusting the entire Colosseum, turning it a dim shade of puke green. "Rest in peace, Calypso, my dragon rider mentor," Jane cried. "Bet you didn't research the side effects of using a druid's nature magic on this forsaken planet. The tabloids say that I'm simple-minded." Jane shrugged as she wiped away her tears. Shaking fretfully, Cameron channeled mana into a bloodstone, which opened a purple portal gyrating counterclockwise. A strange fat balloon monster flew through, looking like a plush doll. "Oh, you're kind of cute, little fella. But you're just a simple distraction from my true enemy." Growing at an exponential rate, the monster was no longer small. "Capture her and bring her to me," Cameron ordered irately as he observed. A grotesque gigantean green monster looked at Jane as it stood in the middle of the Colosseum. "Oh," a dopey smile. "How could anyone get upset with you? For some reason I feel a sense of urgency to wipe the grey saliva oozing from your mouth." Jane had a sudden flashback to an open page of the book Legendary Beasts of Realms she'd seen when she was talking to Troy. Beast 255, Thermochromic Blob. It absorbs you alive, and when it reaches maturity, the thermochromic blob divides itself into 100 small-sized blobs, beginning a new life cycle. This beast was accidentally created when sorcery students were creating a strange brew. The beast's weakness is fire, which must be exterminated immediately. The thermochromic blob opened its mouth, wrapping its long grey sticky tongue around Jane's hips. "No, I am not candy." Jane could feel herself pressed against the roof of its mouth. Still able to move her arms freely, Jane rubbed her hands against a wet surface, speaking in tongues and uttering, "Urine." Spitting Jane out, the thermochromic blob's skin turned dark red and began blowing steam from blowholes all around its neck that had suddenly opened. Distracting her opponent with shadow clones, Jane continued whispering in the Mandarin tongue, conjuring an aura of flames. Throwing 50 shuriken that ignited when thrown through her flame aura, she melted minor wounds on impact. Trembling from mana exhaustion, Jane's arms and legs seized as the thermochromic blob ran toward her. "Crap, I can't move." After delivering a soccer ball kick, Jane helplessly flew while whispering in tongues and changing her clothes into a skydiving suit. As she struggled to flip herself forward, the monster aimed its hands forward, firing shuriken back at Jane. Shouting in tongues, Jane cast shadow clones, which began struggling to turn her upright. 5 shuriken hit Jane as her 6 shadow clones dispersed. Gliding through the air, shouting in the Mandarin tongue, Jane turned a section of the Colosseum ground into quicksand. Then, casting another spell, she trapped her enemy in the eye of a mini sandstorm. Landing on the ground, Jane cast another spell, hardening the quicksand and stopping the mini sandstorm. She began trying to imprison the thermochromic blob as its punches shattered the thin sand walls. Jane shouted in a quickened tongue to harden the sand, which the monster's punches shattered. Realizing that she could not imprison the beast, Jane stretched out her arms and legs, getting down in a sprinter's position, and began whispering in the Mandarin tongue, channeling electricity around her body. Powering even more electricity, Jane began to count down, 3, 2, 1. Jane executed an electric flying side kick into the thermochromic blob's belly with a great deal of force. Stretching her leg and going in very deep, Jane got stuck. She was being crushed by rolls of blubber. "Thank you, Trinity, for your visual dream, but how do we defeat these creatures, specifically one that is drowning me in belly sweat? How can I kill Cameron if I can't get past this beast?" Given that I'm unable to move, talk, or even mumble, using any spells is out of the question. So much for my ventriloquism in casting silent spells as I mumble under my breath. What is a girl to do? Cameron opened a red portal back to Earth as the thermochromic blob followed through. Standing on the first Tyson River bridge surrounded by 30 inmates and 10 ruby cult-like mystics, Cameron removed his cyborg visor, revealing his face. "Drop her, then go home," Cameron ordered. The thermochromic blob pushed its belly then shrunk itself before stepping through the purple portal gyrating clockwise. Jane was gasping for fresh air, so Cameron passed her a miniature nebulizer from a small compartment located in his left thigh. Jane, desperate to breathe, attached the oxygen mask to her face, breathing heavily. Long, slow breaths. "I need you alive." Another bargaining tool for Marcus besides his only son. "Done talking, doodle hopper." Jane mocked Cameron, signing inappropriate hand gestures as she struggled to breathe. Inmates stepped in closer as Cameron held his hands outward. "Easy, fellas. Jane, I gave you my only nebulizer. You know how much I need it." Jane took more breaths as Cameron began a monologue. "Last chance, Jane Turner. Combine your talents with mine, and we will rule the universe as husband and wife." Even as I speak, all factions of the Sarina gem fields are falling. Rubervale inmates were always my disciples. It was either that or face the death penalty. 9 Mile Sapphire Beach is under attack. Emerald Dragon monks are helpless to defend against wide-range spells. The Topaz Thieves Guild is a trap set by Scientists to imprison all who enter so they can then be brainwashed to join my religion. I am sure you liked his little non-lethal game. Unlike my labyrinth, it is an easy way to kill our enemies, although my labyrinth is clearly no match for you. Troy fought bravely against me, not sharing any information about Marcus, so I made sure Alyssa died, which sent a message to all who won't help me find Marcus or join my religion. You forgot about our queen, who will make you pay dearly for what you have done. Long live Queen Vedic Jones. Jane groaned between breaths. Oh, as for Amethyst University, its queen will die. Nigel Giovanni is getting revenge on her with some of my best men. I have a contingency plan in place to have Nigel killed after his sick mind is revealed to the Cyangans residing there. Besides Cyangans, who on earth wouldn't shoot his brains out? Cameron laughed darkly, stepping in closer. Embrace me, Jane, and all sins shall be forgiven and forgotten without prejudice. Marcus shall remain safe alongside Scientist, Dr. Alexander Saldek, my father, Trevor, and Hope, the chosen one. Together the 7 of us will complete our destiny, earning the respect of all 3 legendary beasts here on Earth. Then I will open a portal to Siona as the 6 of us invade, betraying Scientist. Dark Sparrow would easily betray us, so she won't join our team. Jane Turner, my love, with your rogue skills and sorcery, you will steal coordinates from their archives, giving us more coordinates so I can open more portals throughout the unknown universe. Cameron laughed maniacally. Jane sighed. You're mad. Even if the legendary beasts come, how will you tame something the size of a blue whale? Not only is that crazy Dr. Alexander Saldek is Scientist, but did you know that some of your disciples are not who they seem to be? Blasphemy, shouted Cameron's army. Remain calm, everyone. Watch and observe how I will unbalance Nankin City's law once Maxwell sees Jane taken hostage and becomes desperate to save his only daughter. No one is without sin to obey the full extent of the law when under family trauma, Cameron shouted irately, throwing a bloodstone into the Tyson River. From the corner of her eye, Jane was barely able to see NEV Marine and 1 NPD boat. A purple portal opened, gyrating counterclockwise at the river's depth. Damn it, my backup needs backup. Thank you for reinforcements, Troy. I wonder what is inside that bloodstone. 10 ruby cult-like mystics all chanted, casting sleep on Jane.